Hello and welcome back to the Copper Club podcast. I'm Nathan Joyce, your host, and I'm joined by David Kraakman, this time to talk about Uruguay and their Copa America dream. We've already had the Elastico on talking about Brazil and Tom Robinson for Argentina. So if you haven't checked those out, head across to Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and you can watch them all there. And we'll be talking to other guests about other South American nations in the build-up to the tournament. But today is all about Uruguay, and of course, I've got David Kraakman back, the man behind at Uruguayan Heroes on Twitter. He's grown his account even more since we've had him last on the podcast. But David, it's a pleasure to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here. And I think less than 100 days until the Copa America starts, so it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, last time we had you on the podcast, Marcelo Bielsa was just about appointed, I think, and there was a few reservations at the time, rightly so, rightly not. Has he proved you right or wrong? I'm not really sure at the moment. What do you make of Bielsa's start to life as head coach of Uruguay?
I mean, it's hard to criticize him after he's broken like a 20-year drought of wins against Brazil, and also like more than 10-year drought of wins against Argentina. Well, obviously, we beat in La Bombonera, their first loss as world champions. So yeah, I mean, after a year, he already has a lot of credit in the bank. He's done really, really well, and Uruguay seemed to be once again a force to be reckoned with, and that's not been the case for quite a few years now. So yeah, for Bielsa, the support is there, but that is not to say that I'm fully blind. I'm fully behind everything and blind to any of his flaws because they are clearly there still. And so yeah, I still try to be a bit down the middle, but yeah, what he's done so far, it's impossible not to applaud or compliment him on that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So 4 wins, a draw, and just a single loss from his 6 World Cup qualifiers as the head coach of Uruguay. The only defeat coming to Ecuador. And if the time of recording last night, if anyone saw Kendry Páez in action for Independiente de Valle and his goal and assist against Palmeiras, you can take that with a pinch of salt, rather, especially with that result being in Ecuador, right, in Quito, hard place to go. And that was the main concern when Bielsa was appointed, right, in terms of the way he's all gung-ho, all-out attack style of play, a little bit maybe vulnerable defensively. And we saw that at the start, didn't we, in terms of, yes, getting results, but conceded against Chile, obviously 2 against Ecuador, 2 against Colombia. But bear in mind that game was in Barranquilla, which is obviously sweltering hot by the Caribbean Sea. The South America World Cup qualifiers are just so difficult, aren't they, no matter where you seem to go, especially these away games. But then, look, let's focus on that Argentinian game and that Brazilian game in terms of how he went into those with a point to prove further, even though it was a positive start, and came out with them again with 2 clean sheets. And we'll lead with that Brazil game first of all, because if you look at the stats, and I think we've already brought it up on a previous podcast, but I can't help but leave this. When it comes to the Opta stats, it was the first time Brazil haven't recorded a shot on target in like in 20 years of recording this data, which I don't know if that's partially credit to Uruguay or if it's also partial just to how Brazil fell off last year in 2023. But Bielsa recognised how Fernando Diniz set up his Brazilian team, and they dominated, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned earlier about how the fear or the caution was that Bielsa, although he brings good football, defensively his teams are notoriously weak, or they do tend to concede a lot of goals. And the surprise was certainly in these performances against Brazil and Argentina is that Uruguay were so good at nullifying the opponent's threats, and hardly conceded any big chances. So that these performances showed for me that although he is someone who wants to stick to his principles of football for sure, but he also was able to adapt a little bit in these games. And Uruguay were not pragmatic, but they were compact, high pressure, aggressive, and did not allow anything from Argentina and Brazil. And also, which is obviously very important, were really clinical, because Uruguay did not create loads of chances in these games, but the chances they did create, they almost all of them they took. And yeah, these 2 performances were really the story of great defensive solidity and also being clinical in front of goal. And these are not especially 2 things you would associate with Bielsa. It's more like free. It's more like how do you say, open and expansive conceding loads of chances. But if you win a game, it's probably by scoring more goals than the other team. But these performances were a bit of prime Oscar Tavares maybe, when he really could set up his teams and be aggressive, but also compact and take these chances. So yeah, it was fascinating, but I don't think it's if Bielsa can coach the perfect game, it's not the game like against Argentina or Brazil. It will be probably more expensive, but he adapted and Uruguay did well and achieved two historic results. So was great to see. Yeah.
There's almost two ways of looking at it, because if, say, for example, Uruguay hadn't have played Argentina or Brazil before the Copa America, they would have headed into this tournament as dark horses, because not many people would have expected that result, because the media turned around and went, okay, Bielsa, you've bagged a couple of wins, you've shown a bit of vulnerability in terms of like the goals conceded against Ecuador and Colombia, but these are the big tests. And Argentina, and Brazil may have like underestimated them a little bit if they went into the Copa America without playing them first. So maybe I'm being a bit pessimistic and looking at it in a bittersweet way. But then perhaps Argentina and Brazil are looking at it like it's not just about us in this tournament. Uruguay are going to be there and they're going to be really competitive from all the way from the defence all the way to attack. There's superstars throughout that squad, and I think they're going to be still quite underrated. I'm not sure if you echo my thoughts there, David.
Yeah, I do. I do. The thing is with Argentina and Brazil, obviously, is that although they both know of Uruguay and the respect of Uruguay is clear because of what Uruguay have been for the last 115 years in football, but it's also true, like I mentioned earlier, that for 20 years Uruguay did not beat Brazil, and also on many games
Yeah.
were completely humiliated. So although Uruguay still is an opponent to be reckoned with, Brazil and also Argentina would probably go into these games in the last few years thinking, yeah, perhaps they have the name and obviously they have players that can hurt us, but overall we know how to beat them and we have done this continuously for the last years. So it's not odd that they would be a bit more complacent for perhaps, but obviously now they are probably more aware of what the threat Uruguay has to offer. And Uruguay, they enter every Copa America with the belief that they can win. So this will be the same in 2024 in the upcoming edition. But it's also true that for the last, I think it's 5 editions, they've gone nowhere near it. Quarterfinal stage is the furthest they have come, and it's not even Brazil or Argentina who've knocked them out in these tournaments. It's Chile, it's Peru, it's Colombia. So Uruguay have something to. They have some history they have to have something to be made right. Let's say it like that, and they will go into the tournament with this feeling. I think, yeah.
Bielsa hasn't. He's not a man afraid of anyone, and he's definitely not been afraid to make some big decisions. And his decisions were to drop out Edison Cavani, who's, to be fair, recaptured some form with Boca of late. And we all saw how well Luis Suarez was with Gremio last year as their top goal scorer before. Obviously, he's headed now into Miami to obviously link up with Lionel Messi and a few other former players from Barcelona. But both were left out the squad at the start. And what we saw was Bielsa make Darwin Nunez his main man. Now, if Liverpool fans are, let's say, 50-50 when it comes to Darwin Nunez, especially this season, he almost appears to be the scapegoat at times. If he misses an opportunity, it's all over social media compared to anyone else. And sometimes he's had the criticism, which has been fair. But for Uruguay and Bielsa, he's been the top goal scorer in the South American World Cup qualifiers, 5 goals. The opener against Brazil, effectively the winner against Argentina with a really composed finish in the last couple of minutes. And it's been Bielsa who's brought the best out of him. And what was really interesting when I was going back through my notes was that after Liverpool's game against Newcastle early in the season, when I think Nunez was responsible for either the winner or the last 2 goals in that quick turnaround at St. James's Park, when the British media interviewed him, he actually didn't put any sort of praise towards Jurgen Klopp, and he actually turned around and thanked Marcelo Bielsa, which I thought was a really controversial thing to do playing for Liverpool. But it just goes to show like how well that relationship's blossomed. And when he's putting on a Uruguay shirt, that he's delivering. And I think he might surprise people, especially I think Liverpool fans could feel a little bit frustrated this tournament, being like, Darwin Nunez is turning on in the Uruguay shirt and he's missed out for opportunities for Liverpool this season and potentially cost us the title. And we've seen it, haven't we, across social media and especially over the last week or so in the Everton result where they lost 2-0. But what's your thoughts here? Because Darwin Nunez seems to be a completely different animal when he turns up for the national team. And he's obviously kept Cavani out the team. Suarez has come back, but he's probably in the dressing room more from a point of view just for leadership and experience. But even Suarez has turned around and been like, he's the new number 9, like he's the person to lead the way. So interested to hear your thoughts on Nunez for another controversial 12-month period for him.
Yeah, Darwin is like an enigma for many because, like you said, his stretch of games for Uruguay, certainly the last 4 games in the qualifiers were fantastic. You know, he's the leading force for Uruguay to have this streak against, especially the wins against Brazil and Argentina, were fantastic. Although it's also true that these are 4 games. So the career for Darwin is not one of great success, you know, overall. So he's had tough periods as well. And I know he's played on the left wing when Suarez was there still, but at the World Cup, he did not do well. And I'm not saying he should carry or burden a lot of blame for how Uruguay went out, but it's also true that he did not perform well. So these 4 games are brilliant. These qualifiers are brilliant. But I think the how do you say this? So the question I get sometimes is from Liverpool fans is how is Darwin so inconsistent for Uruguay or for Liverpool, but is able to perform for Uruguay? And last night I had this discussion. I said I get that your impression right now is that he's had 4 games or 6 games in the last year and he's done well, but he's had 6 games in a year. So it's also it's possible that he will go into the Copa America and carry on his form for Liverpool and be inconsistent in front of goal. I don't see this as an impossibility. What is true though is that in Uruguay he's the main man. You know, he's the number 9. Bielsa has given him the vote of confidence. He's the senior forward at 24, with wingers around 19, 20, 21 years of age. So he's the man that has to carry the burden, and he's delivering so far under that burden, and also because playing for Uruguay is a little bit different than playing for Liverpool. It's his country. It brings something more to the table for him. But when it comes to Liverpool, certainly this season, the first season you could say is his first season. He's playing from the left wing a lot, not starting a lot, or well, maybe starting, but not all the games anyway. Now coming into the second season, there's been improvement, but I can understand people who have been frustrated with him because I am as well. Because although certainly earlier in the season with the 2 goals against Newcastle, some good games, his overall play has improved for sure, and also some big goals like against Newcastle, like against Nottingham Forest. There's been improvement. It's also true that now we've gone into the final stretch of the league and of the Europa League quarterfinals. Darwin has once again shown that he is not a reliable match winner and has not been able to be consistently deliver for Uruguay or for Liverpool, as their main number 9. And that's why the criticism, although I do love Darwin for the player he is and the character he is, the criticism is justified and questions should be asked. What I don't like though is this how binary it is. You know, either you want him completely gone, there's nothing to him, he's been horrible, or people who fully back him and do not see any of his flaws. I try to be in the middle of that because I think we're not really conducive to the conversation to view it like that. You know, like on the extremes. So yeah. A short answer is that I think Darwin at 24 still has a lot to improve, and time will tell whether he can deliver on that promise. For Uruguay so far in the last few games, it's been great, but I'm not blind in my faith, so I can also see how it can turn sour for Uruguay as well. It's a difficult one. Darwin is hard to predict. It's really hard.
Yeah, for sure, and he's almost in a unique situation where when he goes on international duty to represent his country, the pressure's almost off a little bit. And I mean that because with Liverpool, the eyes on him all the time. Like Liverpool expected to win every week, okay? And obviously Uruguay's expectations were a little bit lower after the 2023 World Cup exit and sort of that rebuilding project under Bielsa. But he goes to Uruguay not having the noise from Liverpool fans, social media, etc. I know social media follows him, but you know what I mean. And then he has Bielsa and like Suarez there going, "You're the next. You're taking my position now," and Bielsa going, "You're the main man." And
Yeah,
potentially that's why he delivers. So there should be expectation, and I think he can deliver at Copa America away from the pressure of Liverpool because it's not been an enjoyable environment for him. And I know you said there he's one of the most experienced players, but he's at 24 years of age. Like there's a lot of expectation every time he's on the pitch to deliver, and rightly so as a Liverpool player. But going on international duty, if you look at it any other way around, it's more pressure when you go and represent your country. But with Nunez, it seems to be slightly different, which could be an advantage when it comes to Copa America. And if we move on from Nunez and look at the player in behind him, and a player who I absolutely adore, and I'm so glad he stayed in South America, is Nicolas de la Cruz. I think he's built up a beautiful partnership with Darwin Nunez. If you look at that second goal against Argentina, like it's Leo Messi who gives the ball away, which I always bring up because it never really happens. And it's just that quick counter-attack, and it's De La Cruz, who was constantly looking for Nunez in this World Cup qualifiers, 3 assists, but 3 goals as well were scored against Brazil. And their relationship has really blossomed. And potentially Nunez goes away and he's got a spring in his step, knowing he has someone with excellent service who goes under the radar just because he doesn't play in European football, stayed in South America, gone to probably arguably the biggest club in South America, which he's going to be playing week in, week out. He started the season really well, rather than going to Europe and being a squad player somewhere and maybe losing that inconsistency in that rhythm in terms of minutes on the pitch. But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on De La Cruz because I'm a huge fan of him, and I think that relationship with Nunez is just, like I said, really blossomed over the last 6 months.
yeah, and I really like him as well. I mean, the first time I saw him was when he was playing for the under 20 side in the Sudamericano, and he was the captain and did really well. Was brilliant. And his career, I mean, he's had some tough spells at River Plate, but he's come through them mainly due to the confidence of Marcelo Gallardo. And at Flamengo, he's also started well, very well. And for Uruguay, it's only recently that he's been breaking into the team as a starter, and that's under Bielsa. And the funny thing with him is that he's such a complete midfielder, and he's grown to be that. You know, it wasn't that at first, but he's so tenacious. He's hardworking. He's quite a good ball recoverer for the size and well, the left, he's not that powerful, and he's also, yeah. So it's a surprise if you watch him 7 years ago, you would never associate with him with a ball winner, but he's quite good at that. He's a good passer. Like he spots a pass. He's also very hard to dispossess. Very neat, very tidy in terms of dribbling, and he can contribute with goals, which he has done in the qualifiers so far. Um, you said you liked that he went to Flamengo, that he stayed in South America. I'm not of the same school of train
I
of
saw
thought.
your face when I said that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I like. I mean, I like that he went to Flamengo because Flamengo for me is like a monster club in Brazil, and also obviously they have Dallas Caeta, Vinha, Guillermo Farella there, and you play at the Maracanã. I mean, who doesn't want to play there weekly? So I understand it. The funny thing with him is that um, often now you associate footballers with being well, a bit greedy, going for the money, and he has been the opposite for that of that because there are many times in his River Plate career where he could run his contract down and get on a free into a club in Europe. And
Hmm.
certainly at his age, 24, 25, when this was a possibility, um, it's probably the best way to go because clubs in Europe are not gonna, or not a lot, not many of them are gonna invest 15, 20, 25 million as River Plate was asking for a player of that age from South America. They don't do it very often. The same with Dallas Caeta, who's been brilliant for Flamengo for years. But nobody's gonna pay 25 million for a player at that age from South America. But even that was a possibility, he went and extended his contract for 2 or 3 years every time to make sure River Plate would get a fee on him because he didn't like the thought of going for free after River Plate has stuck with him, done so much for him. Um, but it eliminated the possibility of Europe. That's the only thing. And then Flamengo came in, who probably is the only club in South America who has the possibility of splashing out that kind of cash,
Yeah.
and they've done so. And he's been. I mean, his goal in the opener in the Brasileiro, the free kick goal was brilliant. He scored the winner against Sao Paulo, I think, or the second goal anyway. So he slotted in brilliantly under Tite, and I think he's someone. Maybe we'll get onto this later, but he's someone that it could be a key figure for Uruguay at the Copa America. And yeah, I'm really excited to see his career in Flamengo, but also for sure in the Uruguayan shirt.
Absolutely. And look, we've started in attack with Nunez. We've worked our way back to Dela Cruz. And let's go a step further back and look at potentially, in my opinion, here comes the clip, the best two defensive midfielders and the best partnership potentially in that central midfield role at the moment going to Copa America in PSG's Manuel Ugarte and Federico Valverde, obviously of Real Madrid. Now, am I being bold here and getting carried away just because I'm doing the Uruguay show, or are those two are the real deal when it comes to a partnership for anyone in the world? And obviously, Brazil are still finding their feet really under Dorival Jr. Not sure exactly who they're going to play. Argentina, obviously, look, Kevin McAllister has been unbelievable. Enzo Fernandez, though, is obviously announced at the time of the podcast that he's going under surgery and he may not be fully fit for Copa America, which gives them sort of a vulnerable area. So if you keep these two fit and head into the Copa America, that could be the dream partnership in the middle for Bielsa to work with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you judge it on the qualifiers so far, I think there's a case to be made that they have been probably two of the 3 or 4 best midfielders in South American qualifiers so far. It's not to say that, like you said, Argentina with Alexis McAllister, even De Paul, Enzo Fernandez have got brilliant talent. It's just the case that they've probably not been at the same level in terms of performance in the qualifiers. Having said that, Ugarte has had a tough season for Paris Saint-Germain so far, very inconsistent in terms of his playing time. But when they will pull on the Uruguay shirt, I'm pretty sure that they can beat or they can rival any midfield they will come up against in the USA next summer. So that's exciting. And also De La Cruz, as we just mentioned, Bentancur still in the mix over there as well. So it's a strong midfield Uruguay have for sure. I mean, the days of Rafael Rios and Diego Perez, who were brilliant warriors in the midfield, are long gone, because these are players that obviously play in the very top of European football. And yeah, that's brilliant to have.
We've spoke so much about the successful players within the squad and the big players who are going to arguably help take Uruguay far in this competition, but we haven't spoke about any potential weak links. And I know we mentioned at the start with Bielsa's style of play can be vulnerable, and we saw Uruguay concede a couple of goals at the start, and obviously that sort of petered out with 3 clean sheets in a row. And then you mentioned the young wingers, okay, Darwin Nunez being quite a senior player at 24, leading the line with the likes of like Facundo Palestri on one wing, obviously not getting too much game time. It seems to be a particular area, maybe defence or on those channels, where Uruguay may struggle. If I'm clutching a little bit, because I don't want to throw too much shade towards them, but they're probably the areas where Argentina and Brazil are looking at, right, okay, if we meet Uruguay at any point in the competition, these are the areas we need to get into if we're going to dominate these games.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's true that probably the wing positions are the least strong. Maxi Araujo has done well in the qualifiers, but it's also true that he's playing in Mexico for Toluca, which is a good club. I mean, I think they're first in the Clausura tournament right now, but still, it's Mexican football. Pelistri, good player, tidy, but yeah, also very raw. So it's possible that these are the areas where Uruguay will struggle. But it's also true that they have been able to perform really well in the qualifiers so far, especially Maxi Araujo, like I mentioned earlier. When it comes to weak spots in defense, for example, or goalkeeper, I think when we have enough good defenders to construct a really solid defense, but it's everything to do with the way Bielsa will go, and that's also I mentioned earlier how Darwin is an enigma. Bielsa is as well. You know, he can play Viña at left center back, which he has done before, but he's not as strong as in my opinion. And sometimes it will completely pay off and Wood will be brilliant, which is very good, obviously, but also really puzzling. But it's also been the case sometimes, for example, away to Colombia, where Uruguay looked very disorganized defensively. So it's all about how are we going to line up? Will these partnerships work in terms of the left back and the left center back? And yeah, so it's all depends on how Bielsa will line up. And when it comes to the goalkeeper situation, Rochette played under Diego Alonso, played in the World Cup. I think he also played some games for Bielsa. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he did. And then he was injured, and Franco Israel came in the last friendlies, and he's now playing as a starting goalkeeper for Sporting Club de Portugal due to injury from Adan. So it's not sure yet who is going to start in the Copa America, but what we do know is that these are not. It's not Emiliano Martinez. It's not Alisson. They're not consolidated in the top of European football. So it's. I'm not saying there will be a weakness, but they have to prove themselves at a big tournament like the Copa America. So potentially that could be a weakness. Although I do like both of them, they're quite different in terms of of their strengths. But the jury is out for whether they are good enough to make or to be part of a team that will win the Copa America.
A winger or forward who we haven't mentioned, I'm going right to the other side of the pitch back again, because clearly I just want to talk about attackers today. But the other player we haven't mentioned at all, who's just started to filter into the team and has been noise bubbling under the surface all the way from the Under-20 World Cup, which Uruguay won, for people who don't know. But Liverpool's Luciano Rodriguez is a player who I'm very surprised hasn't moved across yet. I'm not sure exactly why that didn't materialize in the summer. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more, David. But he's a player who looks like will be taking that move in the summer, especially if he is included in the Copa America squad. I'm not taking that for granted, but he's come in, made his debut in one of the friendlies, and he stepped up for Liverpool this season as well, scored in the Libertadores. Like, Liverpool's squad has been sort of torn apart, and he's very much the star man for them, and he's sort of standing out even more so just because of how stripped back that team have been. But he looks, and obviously he was the guy who scored the player who scored the winning goal in the Under-20 World Cup final. So a lot of eyes on him. I know there's been a fair bit of interest, I think, from Holland and stuff like that. Hasn't made the move yet. Do you think that will potentially hinder his chances of coming to the Copa America? Or do you think he is almost like I was going to say safe wildcard pick? That doesn't make sense. He's almost the wildcard pick if he is to be included by Bielsa. But obviously, El Loco, he's known for making a decision or two, which is not quite as safe as many other managers would play.
Yeah, it's a hard one to judge with Luciano Rodriguez. I mean, he was part of the March FIFA squad or the March international squad, and he played in both games. Scored one goal was ruled out for offside, I think, but he did quite well. So I'm not sure if he's gonna, but I think he should, because he's a versatile profile. He can play on the left wing, right wing, play striker, and there are not many who can. Not any who can do that to the same level at the Uruguay squad. Perhaps Darwin can play from the left wing, but he's a striker for me. Luciano is probably more versatile. But I think we should take him because although he's very raw and he can also be inconsistent still, and which he has been for Liverpool this season as well. He's has got some special qualities. Can come up with a goal out of nowhere. Has a great shot from distance. Is a good dribbler. Is strong. Is tenacious, and can for sure make a difference in closely contested games. Regarding his future, I think it was a good decision actually to stay at Liverpool for these months. He will play Copa Libertadores again. He's done. I think they won against San Lorenzo this week, Liverpool. And that will be good for him. Plus, the suitors, for example, River Plate, Feyenoord, they're good clubs to go to. Don't get me wrong, but certainly when it comes to Feyenoord to come into the middle of the season, I'm not sure if it's ideal. I think it's better for him to continue for Liverpool, hopefully go to the Copa, show what he's made of, and then earn a move in the summer to a club which, I mean, Manchester City has been linked, and obviously he can be loaned out to Girona. But what I would prefer is a club which can show him, which can give him a immediate pathway to the first team, which he can be slotted in, get opportunities, and then I'm thinking of the big clubs in Portugal, which are ideal, and also Feyenoord is obviously also a good option in Holland, so that he can make the next steps without and not be in the situation like Pelistri was when he comes to a big club. First, his manager gives him a bit of confidence, doesn't play him though, doesn't give him any chances, goes out on loan. The loan is a bad match. The team he's playing for is not playing a style of play which is closely suitable for him. And we're now 3 years later, and I think his first team appearances in the last 2 or 3 years is not more than 40 or 50. So that's a horror scenario. So yeah, it's all about making the right decisions. He's made the right decision for me by staying for now. But it's also up to him to make the right decision in the summer to look for a good club and keep progressing, because the talent is clearly there. There's no doubt about that. No.
As long as he doesn't follow Fabrizio Diaz to Qatar, he's probably made a good move.
Honestly, that's.
We won't talk about that. We're not going to finish the podcast there and there. But look, David, thanks for coming on. We've signed off every episode so far with a quick fire questions at you. So put you on the spot, and we'll sign off the podcast with a few questions here. So let's begin with Uruguay's group stage: Panama, Bolivia, USA. Where do you think Uruguay finish in that group?
First, and anything other than that will be a failure. So first, yeah.
If Uruguay have to take Suarez or Cavani, who would you take?
Suarez. Can
Darwin Nunez win the Golden Boot?
Yeah, for sure he can. I mean, with all due respect, we play Bolivia and Panama in the group stage, so he can rack up quite a lot of goals, and like we've seen so far, he's been able to fire in the Uruguay shirt. So yeah, for sure he can.
Who will finish as Uruguay's standout player of the tournament?
It's a safe one, but I will go for Valverde. Yeah.
Which team would you like to avoid en route to the final?
Colombia.
And finally, can Uruguay win it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's 3 yeses now. We've had Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay. It's going to be interesting as we go around the other nations if they're still going to be as confident. But look, thank you very much for coming on, David. Really appreciate your insight. For anyone else listening to this, thank you very much. Please subscribe through Apple, Spotify, and now YouTube. Trying to make more of a conscious effort on that. And next up, they said Uruguay. We've already done that. Next up, we'll be speaking to someone around Ecuador. So keep an eye out for that. And I'll keep my cards close to my chest about who that will be. But David, thanks again.
Thanks a lot.